Cristiano Ronaldo, Karim Benzema, Ngolo Kante, Neymar Junior, and only to mention a few, the Saudi Pro League has grown increasingly popular in the just concluded summer transfer, buying the biggest of names with overwhelming contract offers to back it up. It seems every aging player's new dream, and some young ones too, is to bag that mouth-watering cash by playing in the Saudi Pro League. Meanwhile, the MLS is now considered old news for many of them. Although looking enticing, there have been doubts if this lavish spending will cost the Middle Eastern nation in the future, with many people, including myself, remembering a certain Asian country who followed this path and how bad it ended for them. Yes, I am talking about China, which leaves us asking the million-dollar question: will Saudi succeed where China failed? Originally, the Saudi Pro League started in the late 1950s, but was not a professional league at that time. It was organized on a regional basis, with the only nationwide tournament being the King's Cup. In 1957, the first qualification process consolidated the regional tournaments of the Central, West, East, and North regions. Clubs competed in their regional leagues to qualify for the King's Cup, which was the final stage of the competition, though the winner of the King's Cup was not the league winner. 1976 saw the start of the first ever professional football league in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, with 8 teams, with Al Hilal being the first ever team to lift the trophy. The following season, the number of clubs increased to 10 teams. As the league would go on, the number of first division clubs was later increased to 12 in the 1984-85 season. As of 2008, the league would see its teams competing in a continental tournament for the first time in history. Clubs Al Ahly and Al Ittihad would be the first to represent Saudi Arabia in the AFC Champions League, which is kind of a big deal for them over there. As later designed, 4 teams from Saudi Arabia would qualify for the AFC Champions League annually. Now, I know this video is supposed to cover the story of the Saudis, but we have to know what happened to the country who plied the same path before them. And yes, that would be China, because the country had the same idea that the Saudis have about making their league among the best, if not the best, in the world. Prior to Saudi Arabia's recent cash infusion, China was the one to assume the role of an emerging Asian superpower. Encouraged by President Xi Jinping's desire to develop the country into a footballing force, many businesses, especially from the real estate industry, started investing in the sport. Soon, the Chinese Super League was signing players like Oscar, Hulk, Paulinho, and Jackson Martinez, something that was unheard of for Asian clubs at the time. The Chinese clubs had to spend lavishly in order to entice stars like Carlos Tevez and Didier Drogba. They spent more than $400 million on players during the December-January transfer window of the 2016-17 season than in any other league in the globe. However, it may have been Ezequiel Lavezzi's move from Paris Saint-Germain to Hebei China Fortune that ultimately compelled the Chinese government to impose a salary ceiling on international players in 2021. Before retiring in 2019, Lavezzi spent 3 years playing in China, where he reportedly earned a whopping £798,000 a week. He was the CSL's biggest earner, and no one has even come close to matching his earnings. The debts incurred as a result of the aforementioned significant deals would ultimately push the CSL towards its impending demise. It evolved into a creature that ate itself. The majority of China's elite clubs were controlled by landowners who made financial investments in them in order to maintain their good standing with the CCP, the country's ruling party. These private organizations began to worry about a slowdown in the overheated real estate sector around the end of the previous decade. The end has simply been hastened by the COVID epidemic. Players had to play in deserted stadiums without any spectators after the pandemic struck and lockdown was implemented, which ultimately had an impact on sponsorships and overall earnings. Another issue the CSL encountered that contributed to its decline was the introduction of a new rule in 2018 intended to prevent the clubs from paying exorbitant fees to overseas players. Any club that spent more than £5 million on an international player would be required to make the same sum to the CFA, according to the new law. In the end, this reduced the number of international players entering the league, and the hype surrounding them gradually subsided. The general public stopped attending games, which made it exceedingly difficult for the teams to continue paying the players the amount that was promised because the money stopped pouring in. Because to their affluent owners' withdrawal of funds, many clubs had to stop operating. The restrictions, which were intended to give indigenous players more playing time in order to boost the prospect of the national team, had disastrously backfired, and ultimately, the pandemic extinguished any residual dreams of China's aim of becoming a global soccer power. December 30th, 2022 has gone down in the history books of Saudi Arabia as their fortunes would change for the better. Cristiano Ronaldo was having a nightmare start to the 2022-23 season, with Manchester United following 4 losses in their first 4 games of the season. Coach Erik ten Hag had decided to bench the Portuguese superstar in a series of games. There was tension in the locker room as some players were standing with the player while some were against him. The damage would then be complete after Ronaldo did an interview with popular TV host Piers Morgan, saying he felt betrayed by the club and he did not respect the coach Erik ten Hag. I mean, at that point, people already knew it was over for the Portuguese superstar at the club. Just ask Romelu Lukaku. The winter transfer window was fast approaching and coach Erik ten Hag wanted to offload Cristiano Ronaldo. I mean, even he wanted to go. Numerous clubs across Europe were linked with the Portuguese superstar, but none came close as they all saw him past his prime, and his high salary demands steered them away, and they decided it was more beneficial to invest in younger talents instead. Saudi Arabian club Al Nassr swooped in for the superstar and the deal was confirmed on December 30th, 2022, which Ronaldo labelled as an exciting and new challenge. To the shock of every football fan, Cristiano Ronaldo was heading to the Middle East to sign a 2-year deal worth $400 million. This would be the turning point for the league, as the transfer of Cristiano Ronaldo opened the doors of both popularity from the media and football fans to sponsorship from famous shoe company Nike. Cristiano Ronaldo was the missing key for the Middle Eastern League's shut door, as his transfer saw a massive change to the league. He would bring shoe company Nike to the Middle East as Club Al Nassr, Ronaldo's club, would announce that Nike would be their new kit sponsor. The Saudi Pro League would report a 650% growth in broadcast revenue since the arrival of Cristiano Ronaldo. Since the arrival of Cristiano Ronaldo, Al Nassr went from 860,000 followers to 10 million followers. It is safe to say that the Portuguese star's influence is felt everywhere he goes. The 2023 summer transfer window was open, and the Saudis were ready to go all out to improve their league. Cristiano Ronaldo's presence had already opened the door for them to attract other players across Europe, and boy did they do just that. Real Madrid star and Ballon d'Or winner Karim Benzema was the first signing on a free contract where he signed a 3-year deal worth a whopping 300 million euros for Club Al Ittihad after a back and forth number of days with the player. Ngolo Kante would be the next to join, as he would link up with fellow France international teammate Karim Benzema, also on a free, signing a 3-year deal, just like Karim Benzema, with the reported salary of over 400 million euros over his 3 years in the club. I mean, that's over 100 million per year. More transfers would follow. Wonder kid Gabriel Veiga from Celta Vigo to Al Ahly for 40 million euros. Riyad Mahrez from Manchester City to Al Ahly for 35 million euros. Talented winger Alan Saint-Maximin from Newcastle to Al Ahly for 25 million euros. Merih Demiral for 20 million euros, Roger Ibanez for 30 million euros, Edouard Mendy for 18.5 million euros, Frank Kessie for 12.5 million euros, Roberto Firmino on a free transfer, Fabinho for 46.7 million euros, Jota, no, not that Jota, this Jota, for 29 million euros, but it looks like his time was already up with the club after failing to be registered in the team. Luis Felipe for 25 million euros, Yannick Carrasco, who can't seem to take a break from the Asian love, for 15 million euros. Neymar Junior for 90 million euros, which is now a transfer record in the league. Malcolm for 60 million euros. Ruben Neves after a back and forth transfer saga with Barcelona for 55 million euros. Alexander Mitrovic for 52.6 million euros. Sergej Milinkovic-Savic, the guy was always linked with the monster move to Europe's biggest clubs, for 42 million euros. Kalidou Koulibaly, that guy who just wasted everyone's time by calling John Terry to ask him about his number 26 jersey, only to do absolutely nothing with it, for 23 million euros. Yassine Bono, the Moroccan Thibaut Courtois, who was supposed to replace Thibaut Courtois, for 21 million euros. These are just a few I could mention because apparently there were a lot of transfers done in the Saudi Pro League this season, but not more than Chelsea though. Only 3 players in MLS are permitted to move around without following the normal financial restrictions. They are referred to as designated players and are exempt from the stringent spending restrictions that other MLS clubs are required to adhere to. When a certain Mr. David Beckham joined the LA Galaxy in 2007, the restriction was put in place. As you might have dared to assume, there are no restrictions on how much money one team can spend in Saudi Arabia. There are no institutional procedures or restrictions governing the exorbitant payments given to players from Europe to lure them to the league, unlike in MLS or Europe, where financial fair play can catch up with any side after 3 years of spending. They can shop in Saudi Arabia and leave the store looking like Julia Roberts from Pretty Woman without suffering any consequences. Like everything in life, there is a catch. There is a maximum number of international players that can be on a Saudi Pro League team. For instance, in Major League Soccer, MLS, the 29 clubs share the 233 international roster spots. Therefore, a team may have more or fewer than 8 international players depending on the outcome of the competition. However, the maximum in the Saudi League was set at 6 as of the 16-17 season, and it has since been increased to 8. There is therefore, at least temporarily, a modest restriction on teams wanting to buy complete squads, even though there are no restriction on how deep one's coffers can be in the KSA. Yeah, I'm talking to you, Todd. Although already involved in competition bearing the name Champions League, the Middle Eastern nation is not satisfied, and rumours have it that Saudi Arabia are eyeballing the prestigious UEFA Champions League and will do whatever it takes. Saudi Pro League chief Carlo Nora has admitted that the Middle Eastern League is looking to take part in the UEFA Champions League, but also says the league will continue to compete in the AFC Champions League as they have done in the previous years. For me, I would love to see Cristiano Ronaldo in the UEFA Champions League again. Don't know about you though. So guys, what is your take on this? Do you think the Saudis will fail or will they succeed? Drop your comments, and as always, talk to you in a while.